This video will walk you through the tax prep pipeline and show you what happens in some of the stages and give you a few tips along the way. So, first of all, you will see some of the settings for this pipeline. We like to put this one in um, oldest first order so that way you can see those that got everything to you quicker. Maybe those are the ones you prioritize. We also like to show account tags on the job field because this is helpful. One, if you place an account on an extension and have an extension tag, you can actually just see that on the job card in your pipeline. And you can also see other nuances. For example, does this job, you can quickly see, is it 1040, 1065? That should also be in the name of the job itself. So we like to see the name on it so you can see the client name, as well as the due date and assignees. You'll see with the job cards, we have a different job for each different tax type, and you can add the due dates to those job cards automatically. And that way it also helps sort, okay, what are the ones that are due a little bit sooner if it's a partnership or an S Corp return, for example, or is it something that's due on the April 15th due date? So those are a couple of the settings. You'll see this one is also set to recur automatically as long as you add the jobs to the recurrence setting in the pipeline. And this kicks off every year and repeats. You can choose the exact timing for yourself. We put January 22nd because once this kicks off, it starts sending things like invoices and engagement letters, and it will, as long as you set it up to do so, it will send reminders as well. So we felt like January 1st was a little early, 3 days later, to start sending reminders on that. So what we actually do is we recommend sending an email outside of your pipeline, and you can do this by sending a bulk email. And we also give you a template on some language you can use. You can change it and make it your own, but you can set up the email template so it's really easy for you to send. But you can send that towards the first of the year. And that one's really just going to kick off the tax year, let them know what to be looking out for, let them know what to expect and how this tax year will work, and to give them a heads up that they will later this month be receiving an invoice for a deposit as well as an engagement letter to sign. And it just helps them know what to expect and keep things moving smoothly. So let's take a look at the pipeline itself. And so I mentioned you've already sent that email out, letting your clients know what to expect, what's going on. Once the pipeline itself kicks off, it will start with sending a message and sending an invoice as well as the contract. So we give you templates for each of these, and this is set up for if you would like to request a deposit up front. So in this case, let's say you want a $100 deposit. It will request that before things can kind of move forward. If you do not collect a deposit in your firm, you can remove this step. Just make sure you edit the language accordingly in the message so it's letting the client know what's going on. So what happens here is once your client receive or pays their invoice and also signs the engagement letter for the year, those are the two triggers that will cause the job to automatically move to the next stage. Until both of those have been met, your job will be sitting here in this first stage under invoice and engagement letter. Once the job moves over, they will be in this request document stage, and this is where they will get an automatic message letting them know, thanking them for their payment as well as signing the engagement letter, and they will receive, you'll be letting them know they'll be receiving an organizer. This is where you can also customize and put the date that that's due by. So if your firm will not guarantee a timely filing unless they get their organizer and documents to you, let's say by March 15th or March 1st, whatever your deadline is, you can make sure you add that to this message. And then this is where we have a little bit of customization here. And so there is an organizer for both individuals and businesses. And if you have this separation, you can have both jobs in this pipeline, but we do that by making sure all of your accounts have the appropriate tag. So is this a 1040 client? Is it a 1065? These are US different type tax forms, but you can do something similar if you are located outside of the US. So that way, if they have an individual organizer, anyone who has a 1040 tag, we want them to get this individual organizer. If they have a 1065, which is a partnership, 1120 corporation, 1120 is an S Corp, then you want them to get this business tax organizer instead. So those business entities will not get this individual organizer and vice versa. So if you have an organizer you're using for your firm, we recommend getting that set up in here. If you don't already have one, there are some templates within TaxDome to pull in and give you a really good starting point because organizers do take a little bit of time to set up. So if you don't really have an organizer for your businesses and you're really just requesting their financial statements or other supporting documents, you can still use this organizer to do so. You can ask any questions to see if information's changed and then ask them just to upload those documents directly into the organizer. One thing I want to point out that is really important here using these tags and these conditions is there is no or functionality, meaning I can't say send this business tax prep organizer if someone is a 1065 or 1120 or 1120S. If I put all three of those tags on this automation here, it would only send if a client had all three of those tags on their account. So that is why you'll see we repeat this. The 1040 just has this one. But for the business tax prep organizer, you'll see I have one automation for 1065, one automation for 1120, and one automation for 1120S. We're sending them that same business tax prep organizer, which may then further have different conditions in the organizer depending what entity type there are. Maybe you only want them to answer certain types of questions. But I want to point this out because that's really important. You'll find all of a sudden nobody's getting their organizer because not many of your clients have all three of those tags in this example. So lastly, in this stage, because once they've gotten to request documents, you know they are an active client for the year. They've already paid their invoice and they've signed your contract. This is where we also have a couple different automations where you are applying their folder template. And so if you go back to one of the earlier videos on tax prep, we talk about how if you have a tax prep business, there's different folder structures you can do. And generally we have different tax years applied to those structures. So what you can do before you even have clients recurring in this pipeline, update your tax prep folder template structure or whatever you call that to make sure the most recent tax year is there. What this will do then is once a job moves to the stage and we know they're moving forward, and we'll definitely have you working on their tax preparation for this tax year, this will make sure that that new folder template gets applied. And if you recall from our folder video, this won't override anything else they have. It'll only add those new templates, which should really be that new tax year. So that is a really easy way to do it across the board without manually having to go into your clients and update their folders. And then the last automation in this stage is to update account tags. So we like to have a different tag for every tax year. That way you can go into an account and see what tax years they've been with you. And so you would want to go ahead and set up this new tag for whatever tax year it is that you are doing. And then once they get to the stage and you know they are working with you, it will automatically assign that tag to their account. So in this step, it is on auto move, and really what the trigger will be is the completion of the organizer. So once your client submits the organizer, they've uploaded their documents and submitted it, that is the trigger, if you have auto move on, that will move your job over to this next stage, which is review documents. So this is a stage where you can go through what has been received from your client and make sure they've answered the questions that you needed and they have uploaded everything you need. You don't have to have this stage if this is really just part of your drafting return stage. The reason we like it is, especially if you can assign this to someone that goes through and does at least an initial check, you can make sure you have everything you need well before you even start the return or the draft return, and you can ask for it if you need, and you're not wasting time if you jump into it and start drafting, then ask, and then have to wait on that information. So that's why we like this. And what will happen automatically once they submit that organizer, they move over, they will receive a message that just acknowledges that you have received their organizer and documents and that this is in review, and you'll let them know if you have any questions on what they submitted or if you notice they're missing anything. So you'll notice along the way there are a lot of these messages, and that is just to keep that communication going with your client. It lets them know every step of the way where things are at, and just gives them a good experience and hopefully cuts down on some of the questions that you're receiving also on where things are at. So that message will go out automatically, and then there will be a task to confirm client responses and documents are complete. So this is really important to note. We do have this set up on auto move, meaning once you complete this task, that is the trigger that will move it. But it's really important that this task is only completed if you've confirmed that their documents are complete. If you notice they're missing something, you don't want to check this task because that will move your job over here. And part of this move lets them know, hey, we've got everything great. And that may not be the case. So if you are concerned that this might get checked off erroneously or too early, you can always turn off the auto move, especially in the beginning, and manually move it over. Once you know that you've checked everything's complete, you can just drag the job on over. So that's just an alternative if you want to kind of handhold that process a little bit more. It removes some of the automation, but gives you a little bit more control over it. So if a client is missing something, you can just let them sit here, but make sure you send them a message, let them know what they're missing. And when they send that back over to you, you can go ahead and check this task off, and they will move to that next stage, which is draft return. So let's move on over to the draft return. And in this stage, they will automatically get a message saying, thank you for submitting everything. It looks like we have what we need to get started, and we will begin preparing your return, and we'll let you know once it's in review. And then we'll basically upload it for your approval. So that goes out automatically, but then there is this task that is created, which is really just to review the return. Oh, this one actually should be drafting the return. So we'll update that in here. If you look at your templates, that's correct. So this task is to draft the return. And once you have drafted that, you can go ahead and check this off. And when you do that, it will auto move the job to the review return stage. So this stage is optional. If you have a team where you have a tax manager reviewing your returns, this one's really great because you can assign the task of reviewing the return to the different person. And it lets you know which ones are being just drafted and which ones are drafted but waiting on that review. If you are the one doing the drafting and the returning, and you don't want this to be a separate stage, you can always combine stages here or edit that. Just pay attention to some of the automations that are happening to make sure you adjust those accordingly. So the message that goes out just lets them know their draft has been completed and is in the process of being reviewed by their firm to make sure everything is ready to go, and that you will let them know once it is ready for their approval. So once the task is checked off to review the return and that is completed, the job will auto move over here to client approval. This one, you'll notice there are not any automations going directly to the client for a couple of reasons. It's really just the task that is automated, and that is because the order of these are important. So the first task is to upload the tax return and link it to the job. So we want to make sure that happens before you're sending a message to the client. So you can upload the tax return, and directly in that upload screen, there is an option to link it to the job. That is really important because if you don't do that, then you won't have the automation of that being complete and your job moving over. So your job will just really stay here. There's nothing to help that move over. Or it will automatically move once these tasks are completed, even though you're not ready for that. So then there's a task to send a message. So this doesn't, again, go out automatically because you want to make sure this first step is done first, but we do have a template for you and that you will set up. So it's really quick to send this message out once you're ready to do that. And when you upload this return, you are also setting it for the client to approve this return. So then when you send this message, it's basically letting them know we have uploaded your return. It's ready for your review. Once you review this and you approve it, please check the I accept button, and this will approve that for them. Because you've linked it to the job, that will be a criteria for this to be able to move to the next stage. If they disapprove, there's an option for them to do that. And then if they click that button, they can provide feedback on why. And essentially, we let them know that in the message, that if they disapprove, they can let us know why. We'll take a look at it and let them know of any updates. So once the client clicks that approve button, they will go to this e-signature client invoice stage. And this is, again, a couple of tasks because we have to handhold the order of this, and there's some more uploading we have to do to the system. First task is to create a balance due invoice. So this is if you are following the route of doing the deposit. Now this is that balance due invoice. If you don't do deposits, it could just be your full invoice. Just make sure you update the language and some of the messages accordingly. So first we're going to create that invoice. We're not sending it or notifying the client yet because we want to do that through our message, but it will be available in their portal. And you are also going to upload your form 8879, and you're going to do that with KBA. So you'll add the signatures. The KBA is what will authenticate that your client is the one e-signing. And we are also going to lock the balance due invoice and link that to the job. So there are a few steps in here in this task template that you will be creating here. We do have some tips on how to do that, as well as a couple of resources on the TaxDome website to guide you through that. So because we have linked the 8879 to the invoice and locked it to that, we've also linked it to the job. That is going to be great because until the client pays that invoice and completes their signature on the 8879, the job will stay here and won't move yet to that next stage. So then we are going to send a message. And again, this order is really important. You want to make sure these two are done first. Then again, this will be a template. So even though this is a task, meaning it won't automatically go to your client, you have to go ahead and manually send that message. You're going to do it from a template, so it will be really quick and easy. But it basically lets them know that their e-signature is needed. It lets them know that they have a balance due invoice. And as soon as they pay the invoice, they will have access to Form 8879. It also gives them a heads up about the KBA and how that works. And this knowledge-based authentication will ask them a few questions. It might be like, what was one of your former addresses? And we also tell them not to worry if they get these wrong. We can have them print the document out, give us their physical signature, and upload that back to their portal. So it just kind of helps them know what to expect and gives them an option if they run into trouble with the KBA. So this is assuming you are using that KBA option. You can edit this or customize this if you choose not to use that. So once the client pays that last invoice and they sign their 8879, the job will automatically move over into this e-file stage. They will get a message just letting them know, thanking them for their invoice payment and for their 8879. It lets them know that your next step is to e-file. You will let them know once that has been complete. And then that message goes out automatically. And then there is a task to e-file the return. So once you e-file that return and check this task off, the job will move over to this accepted and rejected stage. In this stage, they will get an automatic message that lets them know their return has been filed. And you will let them know once it has been confirmed accepted. So if you don't do this in your process and you're just letting them know it's been e-filed, you can adjust this accordingly. But if you like to let them know, some clients do like to know that their return has actually been accepted, you can build this into the process. So you will have a task that is to confirm return acceptance. And this is another one. We do have it on auto move, but it's important that you don't check this task off if their return was rejected, because it will move them to this next stage and they'll get a message saying it has been accepted. So if you want to control this a little more, especially in the beginning, you can always turn this one to off and just know you'll have to manually drag that job over when this is complete. But we do have it set up to auto move because that will give you the best automation. So this task is to confirm the return acceptance, and we do have a note in the task reminding people not to check it off if it's been rejected. If it has been rejected, this is where you can um, basically you can either keep your job here if it's something quick you need to do to fix it. You can send your client a message if you need anything. And if appropriate, you can drag your job back to one of the other stages. Let's say you need to go back through the review return stage and client approval stage and all of that. You can drag the job back to that appropriate stage as needed. Just pay attention to what messages they'll be getting and make sure it still makes sense given the specific situation you are dealing with the rejection. So if the return was accepted, you can go ahead and just check that task off. One last task here is to upload the final return to the client portal. So we know it's been accepted. You can upload that final return. And it also mentions if you do provide estimated tax payment vouchers to your client, make sure that's included in there. And then there is an option to notify the client when you upload a document. So we recommend doing that and letting the client know that their final return is in there, and to look out for the estimated payment vouchers. So once that's done, you check this task off. And if the auto move is on, the job will move on over here to return complete. This is the last stage. They will get a message thanking them for trusting you this tax season. It will let them know that let them know their return has been accepted. And it will also, this is optional in there, but we have a piece in the template which will let them know that you hope that they've had a really great experience this tax season, and it asks them for a review. So if you have a particular spot that a client can leave you a review, you can insert that link or ask them to reply if you just want general testimonials. And we also include a blurb in there for how if they are expecting a refund, how they can check the status of that. So that helps them self-serve a little bit. It might cut down on some of the questions you get. And it's just a great resource to send to clients. So that is where your final job will sit. And then at the end of tax season, you can archive all of the jobs that are here. You'll notice there is this last stage here called on hold. There are no automations in there. You'll see there's no auto move on this complete stage because generally they would stay right here. But if at any point a job's on hold, they're not sure if they're going to move forward with you, or for whatever reason, you can manually drag your job card over to here on hold. So you're keeping the job open, you're not archiving it, but it's not muddying the waters in any of your other stages, and you know you're not going to be actively working on it. So that is just really a placeholder that you can use. So that is it for the tax prep pipeline. Let us know if you have any questions on this. And if you're going through this and trying to customize it to fit you, let us know what questions you have. Feel free to bring them up on the Q&A calls or pop your question in the community.